Hello and a warm welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much, ladies and gents, for your patience while we had a few technical issues. I'm going to be asking my colleague Jordan in Edinburgh to be moving the slides on, so apologies for any prompts that I have to do during this afternoon. So I'm Shelley Reid, Senior Intermediary Development and Technical Manager, and it really is my pleasure to talk to you this afternoon about protection opportunities in the UK rental market. Today's presentation will run for approximately 45 minutes, and we want you to have a really good experience. So should you have any sound or viewing issues during this webinar, then please contact the GoToWebinar support team using the link in your viewer. And an email with a link to a short question and answer page will be sent shortly after the end of this afternoon's webinar. Please answer all the questions correctly to receive your CPD certificate. So if we could page on, Jordan, please. So it wouldn't be a protection learning event without some learning objectives, and here are ours for today. So at the end of this webinar, we hope you have a much better understanding of how and also why the rental sector has grown over recent years, understand how to meet some of the main needs of tenants through a protection menu plan, fully understand the protection opportunity in this sector and be confident in approaching these clients, and finally discover how Royal London can support you in this market. Next slide, please. And to help us achieve these objectives this afternoon, we've got a packed agenda which looks like this. So we'll have a brief history lesson to demonstrate how we got to where we are today. In doing so, we'll look at the changing dynamics of the UK housing market. I'll suggest a protection solution for tenants and build a tailored protection menu plan for those who are sitting in the rental sector. We'll then look at what's in it for you as advisors, how you can access this opportunity, and finally, a reminder of the support our Helping Hand service can offer to tenants and their families. Next slide, please. So let's step back in time then to understand what has really shaped the renter market to how we see it today. Next slide, please. And click again. In 1918, at the end of the First World War, 3/4 of householders in England were private renters. Just a quarter were in owner occupation, and less than 1% were in social rented housing. Before the First World War, there was very little, if anything, in the way of social housing provided by that government. For those who were really desperate, the only real option was the workhouse. For the quarter of the population who were owner-occupiers, they would be seeing house prices around the £350 mark, which would be equivalent to the best part of 21,000 in today's money. And if you could click again for me, Jordan. At the end of the Second World War, the UK had a major housing crisis. House building obviously had virtually ceased during the war. Much property had been damaged during bombing raids. An estimated 750,000 new houses were needed, but still suffering from post-war shock, materials and labour were in really short supply. Next click, please. The post-war period also saw a continued growth in home ownership and a decline in the private rental sector. The growth in home ownership was helped by, if we click again, the 80s and 90s saw deregulation of the financial sector with a growth in a new type of readily available mortgages, which allowed bigger lending multiples. And under the Thatcher government, the Right to Buy scheme encouraged social renters to buy their council property. An aspiration at this time to own your own home certainly grew during this period. And on slide 6 now, after the credit crunch of 2008, which I guess many of you listening today, including myself, lived through, it became much harder to get mortgage funding. But we also saw growth in demand for housing from buy-to-let investors and also overseas investors. Click again, please. And following the mortgage market review, self-cert really became a thing of the past. There were more stringent rules on interest-only mortgage and the requirement for mortgage sales to be advised. Next click now, which brings us to the here and now, 2021. So for renters, landlords and advisors, what are the biggest trends currently in the UK housing market? And if we go to slide 7, please. So the big trend is the number of private renters, and that's really expanding. It's estimated by 2023, which is really just around the corner, over 22% of the UK population will be sitting in the rental sector, and that's often by necessity rather than by choice. However, the number of new mortgages taken out by individual landlords has fallen over the last couple of years, and one of the biggest factors behind this decrease is the changes to how rental income is far less favourably taxed. The number of owner-occupiers with a mortgage also continues to fall, but some of the schemes we've seen in the past couple of years have slowed this down slightly, such as Help to Buy schemes and stamp duty incentives. And it's expected that over the next 5 years, the number of social affordable housing will be on the increase. And that will see more of our villages, towns and cities, the inhabitants there living in the rental sector. So if we can page to slide 7, please. Renting a home was really once seen as a rite of passage for the young, and something single people or young couples did in their early 20s while at the start of their careers and before maybe settling down and starting a family. The accommodation was often quite poor, but renting was usually much cheaper than buying, and youngsters could also start at the same time saving for a deposit. But how much of this is still relevant today, and is renting still seen as a stepping stone to purchasing your first home? Next slide, please. So some interesting research you can see here now, carried out by Knight Frank, found there to be a really wide range mix of people currently in the rental sector. I think if you just glance at these figures for me, what stands out mainly, I think, is that renters are no longer just young homeowners in waiting. In fact, renting is becoming more of a permanent living situation for many. So it got me thinking that if such a large percentage of our villages, towns and cities are sitting in the rental sector, then maybe we shouldn't ignore them. They still have protection needs. Of course, they don't have a large lump sum to protect, but they certainly have a monthly commitment in their rent and household bills that needs some protection. If we can go to slide 10, please. So let's consider now how vulnerable are our renters. Let's face it, most people take out a protection policy when they buy their first home. Remember that those in the rental sector haven't and may never go through this process. So it's unlikely that anyone has had the conversation with them as to how they would pay their rent and cover everyday expenses if one of them died prematurely or if they couldn't work due to illness or injury. And remember, tenants typically spend a higher proportion of their net income on housing costs compared to homeowners. And if a tenant is unable to work due to sickness or injury, they may have to dip into those hard-earned savings, which was intended to be their deposit. And this could put back their aspirations to buy their first home even further. And remember, most people outside of our industry don't realise the limited support from the state. Statutory sick pay is sitting at £96.35 per week, proving to be a much reduced income for those on the average earnings in the UK. And finally, a tenant can now be evicted after just 4 months. And this makes them, I think, even more vulnerable than a homeowner who really does have some options, such as switching to interest only for a time, maybe increasing their mortgage term, or on some occasions, taking a payment holiday. So if we move to slide 12 now, please. So we all appreciate the renter market is growing. There isn't necessarily a typical renter these days, as we've seen, and there are a number of concerns for renters, making them a vulnerable client group. So when it comes to protection, what might a solution look like? And if we page to slide 13, please. Well, you could argue that traditional protection products seem to meet most renters. I mentioned a few minutes ago that renters spend more on average on housing costs than their mortgage owner counterparts. So renters are also likely to move more often. So taking into account these points, I think it means that protection solution for renters may require a higher amount of cover as a proportion of income, and they also require more flexibility, and that's for certain. Slide 14, please. So how would a tenant pay their rent and bills if they were suddenly unable to work due to illness or injury? And if they're the main wage earner, how would they look after their family financially? And most importantly, would they be at risk of losing their rented tenancy if they had to rely on statutory sick pay and the significant drop in income that would bring? So remember, the average UK rent currently is £862 a month, and 1 in 3 UK adults have less than £1,000 in savings. So as you can see, the correlation between those two, that's less than 2 months' rent. So income protection could most definitely help a renter client meet their essential outgoings each month if they couldn't work due to illness or injury. Rural London have a range of income protection solutions to meet every client's need and, more importantly, budget, including full-term and low-cost options, which would pay benefits for 1, 2 or 5 years. And also remember, while we're talking about income protection, all income protection policies from Royal London offer a real wide range of extra benefits, such as fracture cover, hospitalisation payments, back to work payments, and accelerated terminal illness benefits, all at no extra cost. Unfortunately, I don't have time in today's webinar to go through income protection in great detail with you, but I'd urge you, please contact your local BDM from Royal London, who I know will be delighted to go through that with you. Slide 15 now, please. So the idea of a tenant needing life cover might not be the norm, but what about considering a family income benefit policy that could also include critical illness cover? This would pay out a monthly income rather than a lump sum if they became seriously ill or died, and that might suit our renter a little bit better. Slide 16 now, please. So critical illness cover can be equally as important for our tenants as it is to mortgage clients. In 2018, half of children born returned home to a rented house. So what impact might a critical illness diagnosis have on the ability of our tenants to pay their rent and utilities? And as we sadly all appreciate, if a child is ill, this can put not only emotional strain on a family, but also a financial strain. Remember then that children's critical illness cover can provide some financial support to help parents meet any extra costs or to take time off work to focus on caring for their children. Slide 17 now, please. I spoke earlier about one of the different needs that must be considered when dealing with renters, and that's the need for flexibility. And at Royal London, we've recently made some enhancements to our proposition to allow for this. So Jordan, if we could just build that slide with all of the points on, please. So if a client stops renting to take out their first mortgage, or if a client's rent increases, they can apply for an increase in their sum assured. This will be based on the current increased limits for our GIOs, those guaranteed insurability options, and that's 50% of the sum assured, up to £10,000 per year for cover payable as regular payments, and £200,000 for cover payable as a lump sum. And it's available on all our income protection, standalone life, standalone critical illness, or life or earlier critical illness. And of course, our Royal London menu plan is absolutely designed to be flexible to change as their career, family, and housing evolve. So building a tailored solution for tenants, because their needs are clearly going to be different to those of our mortgage clients. So let's have a look at a typical renter client, which we're confident you might already have in your client bank right now. So this is Scott and Lorna. Scott's 36, Lorna is 32. They have good jobs. Scott's earning £36,000 per year and Lorna is earning £32,000 per year. They're like most renters of that age group, seeking to buy their own home in the next few years, and their current household rent is £800 per month. This might be one solution. Obviously, I'm not the advisor you ladies and gents are, so you would look at a client to make a protection solution, but this might be just one of them. So what we've done on here on option 1 is set up some income protection only, a policy for Scott and one for Lorna. We've set the maximum limits and we've both set 30-year terms to coincide with their expected retirement date. And for budget, we've set up a maximum 24-month payout, so that's a 2-year benefit period. And the premium comes out at £25.24. Now, what we've done on the other side of this option is set up life and critical illness cover on a family income benefit basis. Scott's cover is £12,000 per annum and Lorna's cover is £32,000. We've done these on an increasing basis in line with the retail price index, and again we've set those to 30 years terms. So we're looking here at £56.40 each month for that to pay a lump sum. But as I suggest, it might be a more fit of a solution to set this up on a family income benefit basis. Now, with both options, there's just one quote, one application and one direct debit, and of course just one plan fee. Both options include cover increase options on the critical illness and income protection. And of course, both of these options include access to Helping Hand, which I'll touch on at the end of this webinar. So importantly for you ladies and gentlemen listening today, what's in it for you then as advisors? And slide 22, please. So it's certainly an opportunity to gain new clients if the private rental world is new to you. And I'll be showing you how Royal London can help you start those conversations in just a few minutes. It can also help reduce your company's reliance on the mortgage market, which, as we probably all know on this call, tends to demonstrate peaks and troughs. And if you're gaining new protection clients from the buy-to-let sector, we'd certainly hope this will increase your firm's income. And unlike mortgages, there's no holding your breath, waiting and hoping that they complete. Tenants are ready to proceed immediately. And let's face it, most people sitting in the rental sector are there by necessity rather than by choice, and they have aspirations to buy their own home. So arranging some protection for them now will not only tie them into you as clients ready for when they do plan to buy, but it will also safeguard their hard-earned deposit. If one of them got sick, it would be likely that they would have to dip into those savings, and that would make any future mortgages more difficult for them with less of a deposit, and maybe more difficult for you to arrange a mortgage for them. And this business will be retained, as you can explain to them that their plan is flexible enough to change and grow with them if they decide to rent a bigger property or indeed decide to step foot on the housing ladder. And finally, there may be cross-selling opportunities with letting agents, such as thinking about that landlords need mortgages and protection too. Those landlords with multiple property might have IHT concerns that you could advise them on. And landlords with limited companies could benefit from advice around relevant life policy. And of course, there will be some cross-selling opportunities for those of you on the call today who deal with general insurance. So let's move on to slide 23, please. The key to reaching the tenants is ideally, I think, through a relationship with a letting agent. And at Royal London, we have a range of support and marketing material to help letting agents understand the opportunity and realise why their tenants really do need a protection conversation. And this includes approach letters and email templates. There's a particular email template from you to the advisor to letting agents to open up this conversation. So what's in it for our professional letting agents acting maybe as introducers? So you might want to set up a referral fee for those successful introductions. It gives peace of mind knowing there's less likelihood of a gap in rental income. And it also gives peace of mind for their landlords too. Letting agents also tell us there's less likelihood to abrupt ends to tenancies from renters who have protection in place. And no one wants to evict a tenant, particularly tenants who are ill, recovering from treatment, going through treatment, or caring for a loved one. And again, clients with cover in place demonstrate a much lower number of evictions. And I think this generally results in longer term tenancies. You can go to slide 24 now. So how do we open then the door to this market? And importantly, how can we at Royal London help you do that? Slide 25, please. Let's look first of all at how our sought after tenants find rental accommodation. So 33% would find rented accommodation through a letting agent, just like the ones we've just been talking about. 23% would find rented accommodation from property websites, and 23% would use family and friends to find rented accommodation. So how do we reach these avenues? If we could go to slide 26, please. How do we reach these tenants then? One of the main issues with existing protection products is they generally aren't marketed to people renting. And many of these people sitting in the rental sector may not appreciate the need or indeed know that they exist. Most people buy their first property, as I mentioned earlier, their first policy that I mentioned earlier, when they buy their first home. And remember, these renters have not gone through and may never go through this process. So the chance of them having any cover at all is minimal. So how can we get in front of these renters? Let's maybe consider existing clients. I have absolutely no doubt if an existing client's children are looking to buy their first home, they wouldn't hesitate to recommend you to them. But are they aware that you need to speak to them about the similar risks they face while renting? Do you ask your clients with buy-to-let portfolios to encourage their renters to consider protection? And many newly divorced clients find themselves, possibly temporarily, that find themselves in a rented property. Of course, the letting agencies that we discussed a few minutes ago are of critical importance here. And client referrals, again, it's all about spreading the word that you need to talk to those living in the rented sector. Over the course of my job, I look at many advisor websites and social media, but I rarely see any content aimed at renters. Which brings me on to how we at Royal London can help. And that's slide 27, please. So, How can we at Royal London help you to have those compelling protection conversations with these potential clients? Before I show you some of the support available on our Royal London Advisor site, let's consider some of the different types of approach you might have. So, does your literature speak to renters, or is it all geared towards mortgage and possibly investment advice? If your website again doesn't mention those living in the rental sector, then again, might it be a good idea to reference the need for protection advice? And again, if you communicate to new or existing clients via social media, might this be a really ideal way to reach those clients who are currently renting or thinking about renting? Do you send out regular newsletters? And could this be another opportunity to raise awareness of the need for tenants to have protection advice? You might consider running a campaign. And if you're thinking that's a good idea but don't know where to start, then I would urge you to take a look at the Royal London Marketing Studio, which is accessed from the Royal London Advisor site. Next slide, please. You can see on the screen now the address studio.royallondon.com, and that will get you to our marketing studio. And here, if we click again, you'll be able to see a wide range of marketing material to help you make the case for protection. It will help you catch clients' attention with the risks that are relevant to them and do what they need to, and you'll be able to do what you need to create your own marketing material. So to make your life even easier, we've built a marketing studio for advisors. It brings all your key industry facts, statistics and graphics into one handy place. Whatever your clients need, you can access posters to give the headlines, maybe powerful sales aids to deliver the detail, and personalised risk reports to help you tell the story, all at the touch of a button. What's more, you can brand all of this material with your own company logo and contact details. And I think the sales aid and risk report that you can see on the screen have an example of that, ABC Limited, and the contact details of the name of the advisor, address and phone number. I'm really rubbish at IT, but it's really easy to do. You just need a JPEG of your logo just the once, and then everything that you prepare will have your contact details and that much recognisable logo. So if we page to 29, please, slide 29. So please, I'd urge you to take a look at the range of resource available to help you tap into this market, to start conversations and build relationships with letting agents and also their tenants. Our email templates can be used as a starting point maybe for approaching letting agents and tenants, and they can be adapted to suit your conversation. There's also an awareness email template that's designed to be sent from the letting agent to their clients to start them thinking. We also have a handy income shortfall calculator to help you demonstrate how long your tenancy clients might cope if they were unable to work. And you can access these all at advisor.royallondon.com/protection-for-tenants. So I'd urge you to have a look at that after today's webinar. So if we go to slide 30, please, Jordan. So I'm sure you'll all be aware of the vast range of support available from our Helping Hand service. But let's look at how this could particularly offer support and value to our tenants. Next slide, please. We believe that really good protection is about more than just money. So I'm sure, as I said, you have heard about Helping Hand. It is a really comprehensive support service that's included in all of our protection plans that are available through intermediaries. Remember, it's available to your clients from the day their plan starts, and they don't need to pay anything extra to use it. And remember again that their partner and children can access the support too. So if any of your clients sadly experience serious illness, injury or bereavement during the term of their plan, it will provide additional support to help them. And at the heart of our Helping Hand service is access to a dedicated nurse. This will be a specialist nurse in the field your client needs support. They will listen and give advice, and they're on hand to make sure your client gets the support that best suits their needs. And this might be, for example, a second medical opinion. It could be arranging specialist support to help someone cope with a cancer diagnosis and the following quite often brutal treatment. It could be cardiac rehabilitation after a heart attack, or specialist speech and language therapy after a stroke. Helping Hand via our Red Arc nurses also offers a wide range of counselling and mental health support. It also offers help for carers, providing practical help at home, and living aids and mobility equipment is all included. And outside of the medical support, remember that Helping Hand also includes legal, career help, support and guidance. Slide 32, please. So 3 things to remember. Slide 33. So as we come to the end of this webinar, just the final 3 things to note. Remember that menu plans can help clients meet the need to have flexibility with their policy for those who are sitting in the rental sector. Remember, our marketing studio allows you to create bespoke marketing material for your business and clients. And remember, as I showed you, you can also request a personalised letting agent guide. And if you need any further help on this, please speak to your dedicated account manager out in the field. Slide 34 now. So we looked at our learning objectives at the beginning of this webinar about 40 minutes ago. These are now turned into learning outcomes. We really are hope and confident that you should have a better understanding of how and why the rental sector has grown over the years, understand how to meet some of the main needs of tenants through a protection menu plan, and how protection can support letting agents' businesses too. To fully understand the protection opportunity in this sector and be confident in approaching these clients. And finally, be able to discover how Royal London can support you and use this material in this market. Slide 35, please, our final one. So that's a reminder of the website that will take you directly through to that marketing material and support for tenants and letting agents. So all it's left for me to say this afternoon is to look out for the link and complete the short question and answers to receive your CPD certificate. And thank you once again for your patience with our slightly late start. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this webinar today. And I hope you have a really good rest of the afternoon. Thank you very much.